Lately I've been thinking about this life and how it brought me here. Staring at this man in the mirror, I see him often here. Wipe my tears, only if you knew what I was going through. Only if you walked it in my shoes. Certain things don't like to talk about, but I'll always remember. The chaos in my mind turned my heart out in November. I'm surrounded by too many doors, not sure which way I entered. But I'm rocking with my loved ones, let you know that front and center. Found out my skin's tough as leather, I can storm through any weather. Addiction was the hardest battle I ever endeavored. It takes a lot of effort to apply all of this pressure.
Welcome to the Message Hope podcast, where the hope stands for hearing other people's experience. My name is Adam.
My name is Mike, and today on the show we have a guest on. I'm really excited to hear her story because I've only heard bits and pieces of it. And every guest we have on here, I hear something that I didn't know about them. So today we have Gina. Welcome to the show, Gina.
Thanks, guys.
How you doing, Gina?
I'm not going to lie. I'm a bit nervous, but, you know, I was driving over here and I was thinking, like, these are my boys. Like,
Yeah.
Adam, I've known you for freaking ever. Like, you know, we take cakes. Our birthdays are what, like a week?
Not even. Because you're on the 10th, 11th?
Now I'm all, what am I? The 10th.
You're the 10th, and
Yeah.
I'm the 6th.
So,
of
yeah.
May.
You know what I mean? So, and then Mike, like, you're one of those people that, like, came around and it was like you had always been here, you know? And
Yeah,
so,
facts.
yeah. And I know Adam and I, like, we've known each other since before this clean time, even though Adam doesn't remember because he was a little cracked out back then.
Yeah. So we, our brother George, right? You guys heard me talk about George on the podcast multiple times. Big part of my story, a big part of the reason why I'm here. But George connected us a long time ago.
With Barbara,
who's, you know, also, God rest her soul, you know.
She's also an Eskimo.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, right? And so, wow, yeah, without them too, I wouldn't be who I am today. And so Gina, we were both clean at the same time. And I remember Gina a little bit. I remember we went to an event, and maybe it was Ontario or Rancho Cucamonga, where they had where they were playing cards. They were playing. And then they had a dance, and then they had all this stuff, and then we're supposed to go to your house for a barbecue. Was that you?
Did you go to my house?
I didn't go to your house, but I remember you guys invited me.
Yeah.
You guys were supposed to go to a house for a barbecue, and I was like, I'm not going to nobody's house for a barbecue. Like, it just was super awkward and weird for me back then. I didn't end up going. But I remember George did, right? And then we lost contact, and then we got clean around the same time again.
Yeah.
You ended up in prison again.
Whoops.
Yep. And then I I ended up losing my kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then we just met up again. I remember when you first got out, and George was like, oh yeah, Gina this, Gina that, right? And then so like we have, there's a lot of connections between me and you. You know what I'm saying?
That event we went to, that was the first time I think that barbecue was for my 2 years. So at that event that we went to, that was the first time I danced without, you know.
I remember that.
Being drunk or loaded, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, I'm a gangster. I don't dance, I boogie, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Trip out.
Hell yeah. Well, let's get started. Gina, where'd you grow up? What was that like?
Oh, man. Whew. Well, it all started in 1902. No. I actually was born in Fontana at Kaiser Hospital, and we lived in Redlands at the time.
Okay.
But growing up, you know, my dad was in the military, so we moved a lot when I was really young. You know, we moved a lot, and then as I got a little bit older, still like in elementary school, my dad was no longer in the military, but he just had gypsy blood, so I moved around a lot. You know. Probably like before school, I lived in places like Arkansas. I remember my dad they had like this softball game, right? And it was like the longest softball game ever. They went for like days and days. They like took shifts because he was on the military base. And unfortunately, before they went to print, somebody else beat him. So so they didn't make the Guinness Book of World Records, but
that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, they were trying to do. Yeah,
okay.
So we lived in Arkansas. You know, I lived when I was little. I lived in Okinawa. You know, I remember that we lived on base and off base. I was very young. I have two brothers that are 10 years older than me. They're 10 and a half months apart, and I remember specifically we used to ride my brother would ride me on the bike, and we'd ride over to this like cliff area, and you could see like all the rice paddies down there and people working with their little hats. And I remember my brother telling me, like, you know, when we get older, we're going to fight. We're not going to see eye to eye. And I want you to remember like the mama sons and the papa sons, right? And so when I was a teenager and he was like in his 20s, I was like, the mama sons and the papa sons, you know. So yeah, that's kind of one of those little core memories, you know. And then we lived off base. So we lived in a house where like the toilet was on the floor. And I was
a hole?
Yeah, dude. And I was little and I was like so scared to go to the bathroom, right? And
you don't want to fall in, huh?
Right. And I remember I had these two friends and they were twins, and we didn't understand a word but we would play all day, you know? So yeah, you know, growing up, I moved around a lot. And then as I got older, you know, I used to live in the high desert. They don't call it high desert for no reason. Yeah. And, you know, and then we made our way back down this way, and I lived in Claremont, San Dimas, West Covina, you know, Redlands, in the high desert. Before that, I lived in Phelan, I lived in Victorville, I lived in Apple Valley, you know, so I lived everywhere, you know what I mean? And like growing up, you know, I had family in Redlands, you know, there's a street in Redlands named after my grandfather. He did a lot of the masonry work there in town, and it's Reese Street, and he lived.
Reese Street?
Yes, Ruiz. There's a story behind that too, but so he did a lot of the masonry work there, and he lived to be like 103, dude. And I think it was for his 90th or his 100th birthday. I don't specifically remember. They dedicated a street after him, right? So yeah, so that's been there since I want to say the late 80s. But the story behind that is we you know, we had a family reunion like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we found out that they quit putting the street sign up because people keep taking it, because we have so many relatives in town. It's like you know, that sign doesn't stay up. So yeah. But yeah.
Interesting. So what was it like for you, like going through school and high school and stuff like that?
You know, it was rough. Like I was saying, I have family in Redlands. Redlands has always been home base. You know, I'm grateful that my kid gets to raise her kids there. That's, you know what I mean? I didn't have that story, you know, but it was difficult because I would go to like a new school like every year. Not like, you know, every once in a while. Like every year I was at a new school. Sometimes I would go to 2 schools in 1 school year. Like I wouldn't even finish out the school year, you know? And I remember like growing up, you know, it was always, we're driving around and like looking for a house here and look for a house there. And, you know, we'd stop and get out of the car and look through windows at the houses that were for sale. And, you know, my dad would be like, oh, we could do this and we can do that. And da-da-da. So it was always like, and I didn't realize it at the time, you know, but like now as an adult and doing some work, right, like on myself, and it's like always needing to run away.
Yeah.
Always needing to find something different. Like it was going to be better over here or better over there, you know, and that's rough on a kid, man. Like I didn't feel like I had roots. I didn't feel like I belonged.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, we were joking earlier, and it's like I was too Mexican for the white people. I was too white for the Mexicans. You know, I didn't even know myself, you know, and so it was difficult, you know. And I had, like I said, I have family over here that and then I had family in like the Baldwin Park area. And it's like whenever I would go there, I always felt loved and welcomed, but I didn't feel like I belonged.
Right.
You know what I mean? I always, you know, they were growing up together. They went to school together. They had sleepovers together. They had the same friends. And I was always this outsider just in town, you know, for the day or whatever, you know. And like I said, I always felt loved. I never felt shunned or anything like that, but I always felt like the oddball, you know. And then having, you know, two siblings that were older than me, you know what I mean? And, you know, I was the only girl. My dad was a pastor, so I joke around and say that the horns were holding up the halo, you know. So I was like, you know, I was the baby, the only girl, and the pastor's daughter. So, I mean, that's trouble, and trouble, right? And so, I just, you know, I was going to say the literature talks about
Go ahead.
you know,
Go ahead.
some of the literature in Narcotics Anonymous, which is the program that I'm a member of, talks about how we picked up these strange habits and mannerisms. And, you know, I picked up those things as a young child, you know, learning to get in where I fit in and become, you know, the class clown. You know, I was over here with these people and I picked up on this style of music, and I started putting, you know, fish hooks in my nose and shaving my head. And then I was over here and I was with these people, and, you know, they were stoners and listening to like heavy metal. And then I became this headbanger, and, you know, then I come over here and then I'm with the homies, and, you know, and so like now, like today you see me, I'm just like this, you know, punk rock headbanging chola, like that's, you know, and so like but I never felt like I belonged anywhere.
Yeah.
I never felt like I had roots, you know, and it's like we were talking earlier, you know, and I was thinking about this while I was all psyching myself out and being all nervous in my head, because I know nobody else that's been on the show does that, right? But I was thinking, like, you know, because of my recovery, because of being a member of Narcotics Anonymous, like I have these relationships with people where we get to do this thing called life together, man. Mm-hmm. Like I have roots, I have a home, I have friends, I have family, like all these things that were these foreign concepts that I didn't feel like I was worthy of, or you know, it's funny you asked where I grew up and all this is coming out, right? But you know, and then I was thinking, like, man, you know, like you know, being in double digits and stuff. I look at like my predecessors, our predecessors that have all these years of history, and it's like, dude, we do too.
Yeah.
Like that shit's wild. Like I'm a dope fiend convict, man. Like I started getting loaded when I was 11 years old. You know, I have a granddaughter who's about to be 11. And I look at her, she's tiny, she's petite. I wasn't, but she's so sassy and loca. I mean, she's so like innocent, and I think, like, how, like, that's not normal, you know. And like the disease of addiction doesn't discriminate, doesn't care where you came from, who your parents were. Like I said, you know, my dad's retired military from like 3 branches, you know. And my mom, like, even though we moved around a lot, like we didn't live out of boxes. My mom made a home wherever we were. Like I had dinner every night, you know what I mean? But like I you know, and there were things, sure, of course, you know, but it's just this sense of not belonging and not, you know, knowing, having roots. And so, what were we talking about?
I think the perception of an addict is always like, it's just always off.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's
Mine
funny.
was.
That's what I'm saying.
Up. Yeah.
So listen, and I hope, I don't know, I probably shared about it on the podcast, but maybe the first time you heard me saying it, but like, my sister's an addict. I'm an addict. Our disease was similar, but different. I was off the hook.
Right.
She was taking care of the family and,
Right.
and thought that she couldn't raise her children without getting high. Right. But we talk about like our childhood, and she was like, Adam, it really wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But in my head, I suffer from like the poor Adam syndrome. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, Adam was touched. Adam went through this. Adam went through that, right? And it was always like, why me? I had that victim mentality since I was a fucking kid. It's always been there, right? So you have 2 people who grew up in the same household where we become addicts, right? But our addictions are different, right? And I had this other person who still became an addict. She was like, Adam, you know what your problem was? You never accepted the way life was. Right. And I still have a hard time doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think
Wait, is that the key?
So I think, I believe that some people were hugged too much and some people weren't hugged enough. Right. I think that some people were too rich and I think that some people were too poor.
Right.
I think that some people were in a healthy environment and some people were in a very I think it's just the perception of who we are that's built in. Like I just watched this video where this guy talks about, he said addiction is like being allergic to yourself. Right? Food's fire, bro, right? So he says addiction is like being allergic to yourself. He said imagine being in a body that you are allergic to. Like like you are not comfortable with who you are. You're not comfortable in your skin. And so you find an outside source to treat your allergy to yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how I felt since I was a kid.
It's funny because when you say that, I'm thinking like, addiction's like being allergic to yourself and like being allergic to the bullshit. And I'm with the bullshit until I take that step to that acceptance and the self-actualization and do some work. And then I'm not with the bullshit anymore. And then, hey, guess what? I found that, honesty is the antidote to my, So yeah, that's. And you're absolutely right about that perception, and I think for me, for years and years and years, I tried to minimize that things weren't bad. And I tried, I was the black sheep. I was the problem kid. Like, I was the one getting sent out of state. I was the one getting, put into the, I remember it's a big church now. And I remember the first time I went to this church now, Water of Life in I think it's Fontana, but it's like Rancho on the cusp. And it used to be like what do you call that? Those...
Seventh-day Adventist?
No, it's like a mental hospital where you take your kids and shit.
Oh.
Charter Oak. It was like a Charter Oak. And I remember we went there. I didn't know what we were going there for, man. And I remember we walked through these 2 doors and we walked through these other 2 doors and then those doors closed and my parents boned out, man. And like, So I always felt like I always minimized things. Like I had, things were good, I just had, but the reality of it is that, obviously things weren't that good. You know what I mean? Obviously, and I was having a conversation with my kid. I have a 30-year-old and sorry. Okay. And I was having a conversation with her about a week ago, we were talking about some things and then it was like, what a blessing it is to be able to have like real conversations and break these generational curses, right? Break these things like explaining. And I caused trauma, man. Like I caused trauma in my kid, man. Like yelling at her, get in the effing house with your grandma, and her pulling away from me and you're going to leave. You always effing leave. And me saying, how dare you cuss at me when she's right, And guess what happened? Like I went and I told her get in the house and I took off and I went and did another 2-year term, So, but the ability to be able to have these conversations, and have an understanding of like, this is what I went through growing up. This is what my mom went through growing up, because my mom, essentially raised my daughter, I always thought I was doing the right thing because it's like, I wasn't doing nothing. Like my kid wasn't with the fingers under the bathroom door trying to get me. I just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, she's cool. She's with my mom, but yet she's feeling abandoned. Yeah. My mom has her own things going on, So yeah, it's that. And then realizing like my dad's trauma reflects how he raised us. You know what I mean? And some of that trauma reflects what, and it's like until we get to this point where we start doing the work and and what a blessing it is to be able to be here, to be in this space where we can be like transparent and vulnerable and have like real ass conversations with the people in our lives. Like I can't, don't get me wrong. Like, oh, how's the weather? That's cool. But like, I can't imagine not having the type of relationships that I have in my life, man. I can't imagine it.
We were just talking about how we're more fortunate than like normal people. Because normal people don't have bonds like we have.
No.
I really don't.
No.
I don't see that.
No.
It's very surface level. And it's, we're able to bond over traumatic things, but we work through them. And that's where
we're also able to bond over traumatic things, but bond over growth, change.
Bond over the healing.
Yeah.
Over what we want to do. And we heal each other. We literally and it's not, I talk about this all the time, but it's not the one-way street of sponsorship. It's like the two-way street of sponsorship where like, you guys helped me walk through so much, bro. I can't even imagine what my life would be like if I wasn't so ingrained in the program. There's a song by Jolly, bro. It's talking about I think it's called like it's my cross to carry, and he's talking about like all the trauma that he went through and how it's his cross to carry. It's his responsibility to heal from that, so his daughter doesn't have like this. Should be emotional,
Right?
Because I tell people all the time, like especially like in the job that I wear, I'm like, bro, like you're either gonna fucking heal from this. You're either going to do something about it, or guess what? Your fucking son's going to have to. Your daughter's going to have to. Like, all the anger issues, all the trust issues, all the lust issues, like, all those things that you struggle with, if you're unwilling to heal from it, all it does is it gets transferred to your fucking kids, and they're going to have to bear that, bro. So, like, you could heal from it and spare them, or fucking keep doing what you're doing, bro, and they're going to have to deal with their dad, their mom being a fucking addict, and they're going to have to live with that, bro. And guess what? Their kids are going to have to live with that if they don't heal, and their kids, you know, and it's like a generational fucking thing that just keeps going down. And at some point,
snowballs. Dude.
Yeah. And at some point, we have to stop.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like I get emotional when I see you, Adam, because I remember when you came into the rooms and when you got your kids back, man. You know what I mean? And you know, other men that reach out to you. Willie's one of the ones that has raised his child in the rooms and has shown what it's, you know. And it, like, for me, I have these 2 grandkids, man, and I have this little granddaughter who's going to be 11, man, and like she's never seen me loaded, you know. You were talking too about like that perception and stuff, right? And you know, I remember when I came up like on double digits, I just had like this really deep sense of like gratitude, right? Like gratitude for like the woman that I am today, man. You know what I mean? And then when I was cut, like year 10 to 11 was like, whoa, it was crazy. Like I experienced things and I like totally out of my comfort zone, man, you know? And we were kind of talking about it before we hit record, about how we go through things and we take it like as a lesson, right? It's going to help me in the next. Right. And so, but like during that period, for some reason, I you know, cause I had been for a couple of years saying, you know, I'm going to start doing some, inner child work. Right. Yeah. And it's funny because like, you know, I would go to prison and everybody would be like all these broads would be like reverting to like this baby talk. And I'm like, y'all bitches is weird. You know what I mean? And like, come at me correct. And, you know, people calling me mom and stuff. I'm like, I'm sorry. I had 1 kid. You know what I mean? I'm not your mom. Like, and just, you know, reverting to this. And so I always thought like, you know, okay, yeah, your childhood, whatever, like man up. Right. And, but like I decided to do some work on that inner child, man, and it really helped change my perception. You know what I mean? And it really, so as I came to, you know, this last milestone in my recovery, I just was filled with this sense of like, this really deep sense of like gratitude and admiration for the woman that I am today, man. You know, for that little girl that was on the like no 11-year-old is going to go and do a line of speed. You know what I mean? Like, like that, you know, smoke out of a light bulb. Like that's some weird shit, you know? And so that perception and being able to say, you know what, things were this way and that's okay. Like I'm not a bad person trying to be good. I'm sick getting better, you know? And so, and the road, the road narrows, man. And, you know, more continues to be revealed. And I'm just so grateful for that, you know?
So 11 years old, you were going there too, right? So 11 years old is the first time you ever done methamphetamine speed back then, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Was it really methamphetamine back then or was it just speed?
I mean, I don't know.
Same stuff, right?
How did that happen, though? That's what I want to know.
So
how did you end up with a line of speed in front of you?
So, like I was saying, I have 2 brothers that are 10 years older than me. They're 10 and a half months apart. They're what are they called? Irish twins. So
I got those too.
Yeah. So during that time, man, we had moved from Phelan and we moved to Victorville, and I started going to this junior high, and I had I made friends, you know, because that's what I do, you know, and I made friends with these girls, and I would go to one of the girls' house. This girl named Jennifer. I always had a friend named Jennifer. Like, I mean, I know that's a common name, but I always like, that was my road dog, Jennifer. It was always Jennifer. So I had this friend and I would go to her house. And during this time when we moved from Phelan into that house, we didn't have electricity. We had propane for a while, right? Like, I don't know, a couple days until whatever. Mm-hmm. So I remember we went and enrolled me in this school, and we came home, and my brother, Marty, rest in peace, was tripping. And he was hallucinating about this woman in the backyard and da-da-da-da. And come to find out, my brother suffered with paranoid schizophrenia his entire life. You know, he just passed away February 14th of this year, 2024. And so, you know, it was a state of emergency. So my mom, we lived in the high desert. My dad worked in Long Beach. My mom, rightfully so, started paying a lot of attention to my brother. My other brother was in college doing whatever he was doing. And, you know, so my mom spent a lot of time taking care of my brother and taking him to appointments and whatnot. And so I would spend a lot of time at this girl Jennifer's house, and she had an older brother. Her parents were alcoholics and they were on bowling leagues. So my mom thought the parents were there, but they were taken off. You know what I mean? And so we would go over there. We would, steal the liquor out of the liquor cabinet and put it with water and do that whole thing. And her brother would have little roaches. We'd go get the little roaches and hit the little roaches. And, one day we found this marble slab that had these lines on it. And I don't even remember if she did it, but I know I did. And from there, I was like, I like this. She did, because what we did is we went and we cleaned all the crystalware in the china cabinet, and the mom came home and was like, oh my gosh, thank you, and gave us money. And I was like, oh. So I equated like the hustle, and so, after that, our other friend, Erin, that lived around the corner, her mom had chronic pain of some sort, and she always had like a little medicine thing of marijuana. So we'd go steal that, and from there it was just on and cracking. So, yeah.
Okay. So what was like middle school and high school for you?
Oh man, crazy. From there we moved to Apple Valley. When I got to Apple Valley, I got kicked out of that school for smoking weed. I ended up getting kicked out of expelled from that school district for just getting in trouble multiple times. Then we moved. We came down to Claremont, and I went to Claremont. And mind you, by this time I already had fish hook in my nose, and I had, punk rock hair, and I wore dark eyeliner and freaking combat boots, and you know what I mean? So I stuck out. They already knew. Excuse me. They already knew that I got expelled from the whole other Apple Valley School District. So they're already watching me, and I remember there was this kid, and he was like another little punk rock dude. He would run around with like one of the green bomber jackets on, and he was like, hey, something about a cigarette, and like went like this, and they saw, and I was like, oh, and then they pulled me in the office, and I had a razor blade in my thing, and I got kicked out of that school. You know what I mean? So from there I went to my parents put me in Montessori in Pomona. Mm-hmm. And it was like 8th grade through 12th grade. And you could smoke cigarettes, dude. It was the craziest thing. If you had parents' permission, you could like sign out a couple times a day to go smoke cigarettes. So, yeah, it was crazy.
Time to live in, right?
I know, crazy. It makes me feel old AF, dude. Mom, I remember we used to smoke in Denny's, It's funny because George and I were running around with, always a newcomer in the car.
Yeah, I know.
Some youngster, right? And we were over there by the Mervins in San Bernardino, the old Mervins. And I was like, remember when this was Mervins? And they were like, what's Mervins? I was like, bro, like I'm really old if you don't know what, you're really young if you don't know what, But yeah, so that was just the pattern, I get kicked out of school for some dumb shit, doing dumb things, I shaved my head and got a mohawk over in Pomona off Kingsley. You know what I mean? Like, what was I doing in that neighborhood? I don't know. You know what I mean? Just constant bouncing around, getting in trouble.
What was that like? What was the what was the discipline like when you
Oh
get
man.
kicked out of all these schools? And
Like I
like at
said,
home.
yeah, like I said too, before that, I had already been, institutionalized. I'm not crazy. Institution. You're the one that's crazy. When I went to your schools, I went to your churches. I had already been institutionalized. I'd already been sent out of state. Like I said, growing up, my parents, my dad was in the military, so he had a lot of really good connections with people. And my dad was a Navy chaplain, so he was a clergyman, so he had a lot of. I'd been kicked out of state twice already. Sent out of state twice already. I had gone to live in South Carolina when I was probably like in, I don't know, 7th grade. Prior to that, I had gone to Utah to a YWAM, Youth with a Mission, which was, some friends of my parents from the military. They were running this YWAM camp, and I went over there, and it was crazy, bro. Like, we lived like in this house over here, and we had to go through this creek, and everybody went and ate at this this big old kitchen, and like our entertainment, bro, was like watching Anne of Green Gables on VHS. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
Okay.
So did you finish school? You finish high school?
You know what I did? I did I took my California high school proficiency exam when I was 15 and a half, somewhere over there in West Covina. So, what happened was I went to San Dimas High School, same thing. I got kicked out of San Dimas High School. I went to Chaparral Continuation, and I ended up pregnant, right? And I was young. I was like 14 and a half. I ended up pregnant. So I went to this school. It was called Arrow something in Glendora. I don't think it exists anymore. And it was for like pregnant teens. So I went to this school, and I was like, okay, it was my high school, high school boyfriend, and his family, and we were gonna do this and settle down, and I ended up going to that school, and my peers were all progressing in our pregnancy, and I ended up having a miscarriage at like 6.5 months pregnant. When I was 6.5 months pregnant, and it was devastating, man. Like, it was very traumatic. The experience itself. I had to go to the hospital and have a DNC. It was a very traumatic experience. And so, going back to that school, I saw my friends were having their babies, and I was like, I can't do this. So I was doing homeschool. I started using really, really bad with my high school boyfriend at that time. And so the teacher told me, like, you're smart. Why don't you take this test and you can get your high school diploma. So that's what I did. When I was 15 and a half, I went, and took this test, and I took a bathroom break and did a couple lines and went back and wrote a badass, essay, you know what I mean? And I was like, 500 words, no problem, and I passed, and the idea was to start going to college. I went to, what's the one over here?
Valley?
Mount Sac.
Oh, Mount Sac.
Yeah, not over here. I'm sorry. I thought it was at my house. I started going to Mount Sac, and I'm like 16 years old at this time, man. And I was really intimidated. I was like this kid. I was on drugs. You know what I mean? And I was this kid on this college campus, and I remember I went to take like a Spanish class, and like everybody in the class knew how to speak Spanish, and they were like giving me a hard time because I didn't. And I was like, bro, like nobody in my house spoke Spanish, and
right.
So I quit doing that, and I did end up getting pregnant again from the first boy I ever kissed. Obviously, I kissed him way before and then saw him way later. But yeah, so I had my daughter when I was 17 and a half. We had moved back to Redlands. I had my daughter when I was 17 and a half, and I decided I was going to change my life, So I kind of recommitted my life to the Lord, and I did the church thing for a while. I got married, did that whole thing, and that marriage didn't work out. I've known him since I was 11 years old. Like I said, he was the first boy I ever kissed. His parents went to my parents' church in the high desert. And, but yeah, it didn't work out. I did that for a couple years. And the beautiful thing about like this recovery process, right, is like I said, I have these granddaughters, right? And my granddaughter is, this was her 4th year in cheer. And they took second place at the cheer competition. Let me just put that out there. And she's a flyer, so yay. But, you know, my daughter started this grandparents thread. And we're all in this thread together. And we all go support my granddaughter. We go out to eat, you know. We just have this healthy relationship. He's remarried. When him and his wife got together, my daughter was probably like 15. She's 30 now. When they got together, and like I would go like do the exchange thing, and I would pull up in my like freaking 93 Buick Skylark with like blue plush seats and gangster white wheels, and I was all thugged out and shit, and I probably had some bald-headed fool in the car with me, and I would be like mad dogging her, and like you know,
Yeah.
and that's how, you know, that's how it was back then. And you know, my daughter's dad's wonderful. He's always been there for her. You know what I mean? All the times that I was incarcerated, like he would bring her to see me. And, you know, I remember one time she had the hoodie on and she's all, and I'm like, what's wrong, mija? And she's like, oh, my dad took me to eat pizza again. And I'm like, oh, poor you have a dad that takes you out to eat. You know what I mean? I'm the one in here, you know, but, yeah, it's a beautiful thing, you know? Yeah.
How many times have you been to prison?
Oh my gosh. I think I've done 4 prison terms and numerous violations. Yeah.
What's the longest time you ever spent in prison?
Probably the shortest time was my longest time. No. I mean, I would just get, you know, 2 years, 16 months, 28 months. You know what I mean?
You know what's sick about that?
What?
I would just get 2 years, you know.
I know.
You know, I remember one of the last times I was locked up before I got clean, because I went to jail clean too, but we won't get into that too much. But
yeah.
But you know, right before I got clean, one of the last times I was locked up, I was in a holding cell, you know, shackled up, waiting to fucking go to court. And one of my homies that I grew up with was next to me, and he goes to court, right, and he comes back. He's like, oh yeah, they just gave me 5 years, right? And so like I already know this fool, like I know he has kids, he has a girl, he has all this stuff. Oh, they just gave me 5 years. And my first thought, because my jail's not a big part of my story. I've been to jail a few times, not a big part of my story, right? My get loaded and I lose my kids. That's my story, right?
Right.
So I'm sitting there with him. He comes in, he says, oh, I got 5 years, right? And I'm thinking like, fuck, 5 years, dude? And then he looked at me and said, man, I could do that shit standing on my head.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is sick, bro. This isn't like, and luckily, like for me, I felt like the drug saved me, because like when I was really rambunctious and really fucking doing a lot of things up until I was 18. When I was 18, I really got strung out. I was already doing dope, but I got really strung out. And so I feel like because I got really strung out, I got really weird. And so I wanted to stay away from the homies. It kind of saved me from a lot of bullshit. You know, I still so dope. I still did this, but I wasn't kicking it with the homies that I grew up with.
Right.
Who were like robbing.
Deep in the,
You know what I'm saying? Shooting, you know, all that stuff we did early on in my life, you know? But yeah, just the thing, like people go to jail and it's like, oh, no, I just did like 2 years, you know? Like 2 years is a long fucking time. Yeah. Especially when you got kids.
It is.
Especially when you got family. Like, especially when you just got a life, bro. 2 years is like, I mean, Mike got 2 years clean.
Yeah.
Right? Like, imagine being locked up for 2 years. Like, it's not,
I've done a year.
Yeah, and it's the sickness that we get used to. You know
I basically did about 10, 11 years on the installment plan.
Yeah, little by little.
Yeah, because I would get violations. Like, I have numerous violations. I would get, 9 months, boom. 6 months, boom. Out for 2 months, boom, back in, so... and it was always like I would get busted like around my daughter's birthday. It's hot outside. I'm running amok, and I'm bound to get cracked. And I remember the first year I was out for Christmas, man, and I was clean, and we got a little Christmas tree. We had a little dog named Chica, we had this little Christmas tree, and we had gone out. We hadn't decorated it yet or anything. We had gone out, and we had just moved into this new house, right? And we came back, and there was Chica like took 3 little turrets by the tree, and I was like, oh, look how cute. Chica left us 3 little, gifts, like just joking around, right? Like my mom, my daughter, and me. And but I remember like that was the first year, like I was clean. I had a little job. I had a little, little feria, you know what I mean? I was able to buy my daughter some, and she was already like 17 at the time. And I just remember like the joy of that day, you know what I mean? And all the like all the years that I wasn't there, like I was busted every Christmas, I might have been out for like Easter and tried to make my way over there and then like got caught up. Yeah. I remember specifically one time because the homie's like, hey, where's my hyena at? And I'm like, bro, I'm not going to tell you, but I'll go get her. Like I'm not going to tell you where she's at because you're going to make a scene. And I buy dope there too. You know what I mean? And like, I'll go get her though. And then I get stuck there, And so like with the Easter basket, like a dumbass, but Christmas, I was always busted, man, freezing my ass off sometimes because I hadn't quite made it to the yard yet to get my thermals. You know what I mean? And like, I have sensitive eyes, so I don't want the wool blanket. I have a chrono, like all this, dumb, just insanity. And so I remember that year, and, fast forward, I lost my mom in 2016 on December 30th, man. And, you would hear these stories like, oh, okay, gotcha, you lost somebody around the holidays and da-da-da. But, like, that's my story now, man. And it's funny because this morning we got the Christmas tree out, So like Christmas is really special to me because like I'm now like the matriarch of my family. Like I I'm the mom and the grandma and like who would have thought like that this dope fiend convict like me, but I get to make these like these traditions. And I always had one granddaughter and I would spoil her, and I'm like, what am I going to do with 2? Oh, I know I can't spoil them as much, but that didn't happen. But, so yeah, I lost and like last year I put the Christmas tree up, and I usually leave it up till my mom's birthday, right? I put it up before Thanksgiving. I do. 'Cause it's hectic. People are busy and I want the girls to come help me, da-da-da. This year I'm actually putting it up late because it's almost Thanksgiving, but like still, anyways. So I usually keep it up till like after my mom's birthday, which is January like 10th. And then I'm like, okay, I need to take it down, But this last year, I left it up till I don't even know why. I left it up. It was beautiful. I left it up till February 14th. I was like, I need to take my tree down, bro. It's freaking Valentine's Day, And I remember I'm an old tweaker, so I like to do shit at night, right? So it was like late at night, and I watched these Tiny Desk concerts, NPR Tiny Desk concerts.
Yeah, those are cool.
Yeah, right. And it was playing whatever, and then it went into something else, and it was just in the background, and then I was like, oh, snaps, that's Scarface, right? And so I sat down, I really got into it, because it's intimate. He's talking, and you're getting to know the musicians, and da-da-da. And he did Smile for Me, And I remember I was sitting there. It was around 11-something at night. I remember. And, I just was like reflecting on my life and that part about, and as you journey into outer space, may the angels smile upon your face, and the homies that have gone before are there to greet you at heaven's door, right? And I was like, damn, and then after that, he did never seen a man cry till I seen a man die. Right? It didn't go like that. I don't know why I tried to do the beat, but yeah. I just remember I was like reflecting, right? And there's this very poignant time in San Bernardino with like in the grip of the disease and looking at somebody in their eyes that's trying to do me dirty, like the homegirl, and it was a setup, and motherfuckers, I'm just trying to survive too. And then my people think I'm involved, and then I'm stuck with these motherfuckers, and it was just this really, and I remember some, and they're like with the gun, and I remember telling them like, look, I'm gonna give you this. You ain't taking shit from me. Because ain't nothing worth it nobody's life. You can have this punk ass teener. You know what I mean? And that song always reminds me of that time. So I was reflecting on my life and just how beautiful, like my clean home and the tree and, you know, all this, like my girls and my job and my friend, like just reflecting. And I went to sleep. My brother had been on life support since December. And I went to sleep and I woke up and I had a missed call, and sure enough, my brother had passed away around 11 something the night before, right when that song was playing, you know. And I have a loved one that I lost to the disease of addiction, a man that I loved right, wrong, or indifferent for about 15 years, man. Many of those years from afar, but the love was never lost. And he and my brother had a real special bond. Whenever my brother would be having a hard time and I would be called upon to go and deal with it, like, he would go with me. He was a big, burly mofo, right? But he always had this bond with my brother, and I was like, And he's always spoke to me through music since he passed, right, in 2020, 21. And I was like, you were there to greet my brothers, you know? And so these are the things that we get to experience clean, like life on life's terms, you know, that perception, loving the addict, you know, and just the relationships, man. And, you know, I got to hold my mom's hand as she took her last breath in 2016, you know. So these are just, you know, this time of year and is always different, you know. It's not hard. It's just different, you know.
So what was it like? I want to know, what was it like coming up to the end of the road, like the last week using?
So relapse is a part of my story. You know, I have had attempts in the past. I have had abstinence. Like I said, when I found out I was pregnant, I had turned my life around, and I did that for a few years, you know. But I never knew the process of recovery. You know what I mean? You know, in 99, I was sentenced to drug court. I completed that program. But, you know, once I could start drinking on the weekends, I did. You know what I mean? Like, I would go to meetings. That while I was in drug court was actually the first time that I had met George. And I remember he would be at the Unity Club. He always had, even then, always had people with him, man. And I remember I would, like, trip out. And he had, like, 3 or 4 years. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, you know, it was, back then. Yeah. And he would share, and he would always be, and like that, you know, like that. Everything was like that. And I was like, this fool, like,
that fool's funny.
Yeah.
I love that fool.
I know. But, like, I never immersed myself in the program of Narcotics Anonymous, right? And so, I'm trying to think, like, my clean date used to be, I can't even remember it now, but, relapse is a part of my story. So, I had relapsed, and it got real bad. Like, it got real bad. My daughter was like 16, and she had her mom back for like 2.5 years. She was like 17 and a half. She had her mom back for like 2.5 years. And I threw it all away, you know? And so that was devastating for her, you know? And so I ended up getting busted, and I went to jail in a different county. I went to jail in LA County. And I was like, damn, this is different than San Bernardino, yo. Like, we don't have hookers and prostitutes in and out, you know what I mean? It was just different. And, you know, I went to jail clean, and that was different. Prior to that, I had already gone to school and gotten my certificate to work in treatment. I was working in treatment prior to that. So yeah, it was no bueno, you know. I I kind of think of that like I went out in October and I got busted in January, February, March, April, May. I always have to, because March and May. Yeah, so May. And that was like, man, when they talk about the disease, you pick up right where you left off. That ain't no joke, man.
Yeah.
You know, what happened is at that barbecue, when I had 2 years clean, at that barbecue, I met somebody. And I was like, oh, you know, he's not a newcomer because he has 2.5 years clean, but he had just gotten out of prison. And, you know, and so I met somebody and I let him move in my house. Right away, I knew he was using. And I went like quite a few months without getting caught up in it. And eventually I was just like, you know, my cousin lived across the street and he was like all the time. And I was like, you know, what are you doing? You're in my neighborhood using while I'm at work. Like, you know, leave, don't leave. Like that whole insanity. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, you don't, he's over here chipping, you know what I mean? Doing like a punk ass dime a day or whatever. And I'm like, you don't understand. I'm a maniac. And so what ended up happening is I told my cousin, like, hey, come here, fool. And he's like, what? And I'm like, come here. And he's like, into your yard? I'm like, yeah, like, shut up, come here, you know, break me off. And he's like, what? Like, shocked because everybody had seen me turn my life around, man. And so, yeah, I ended up using, and it was supposed to be a weekend thing, and it just continued and continued. And before you knew it, I had the homies at the pad. We were buying large amounts of dope, and this fool was like, whoa. I'm like, I told you. And so it just got really ugly really fast. I lost everything really fast, and broke my daughter's heart again, you know. So she had her mom back, and there I went again, you know. And I was able to pull it off for a few months until I just quit going to work. And mind you, I was working in treatment while I was using. And that was, I mean, the first time I went to work, I was so guilty. And after that, I was like, psh, you know. And the beautiful thing is with those employers, like I was able to make amends. And they told me, oh, Gina, all is forgiven, you know. I actually ended up going to work for them at another company after I got out. So just a restoration, just, you know, we don't kick our wounded, you know what I mean? And just being able to get back up and start over again, man. Yeah. Like it's a beautiful thing, you know. Prior to that, like it was a whole cha-cha getting clean the first time, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm just grateful that I made it back, because I know not everybody does, man. And I know that sometimes people think I'm just going to use one more time, and it ends up costing them their lives, you know. And sober livings aren't always sober, you know. Yeah. And unfortunately, that was the experience of my loved one, you know, that I lost in 2021.
Was your first day clean in jail?
Oh yeah.
So was mine.
Yeah.
I was in jail.
Yeah, it counts.
Yeah.
It counts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I got arrested, and that's the only way I stopped.
Right.
You know, but
right. It's funny because we were going to a convention in Bakersfield, and it was I think it was JR and Melissa, and we were listening to a song by Buddy, and he was like, "Just heard the homie got popped in the Arco, right?" Or something stupid like that, and she was like, what kind of rap song is this, getting popped in the Arco? And I was like, bitch, I went to prison twice out of an Arco parking lot. Like, that's some real talk right there. You know what I mean? Once in Baseline and once in Pomona. Like, the Arcos are real.
Yeah. And it always starts off like, there's a lot of things you say that I can relate to, right? Just the weekend.
Right.
I'm just going to get high the weekend. I'm just going to do a little bit here. Just, you know, I shared about it last night. Like, I remember convincing myself, right, having like $200 in my pocket, in a DCFS case, right, sober living, come back to San Bernardino for one weekend, right, to spend with my family, right, and I'm like, I'm just going to buy a 20. That's it. I just need a 20, just one bowl, you know what I'm saying, wet the whistle a little bit, like we're good, right? And then next thing you know, I'm spending the whole $200, $20 at a fucking time, because I keep trying to convince myself that I'm controlling it, that it's going to be different this time, that I'm going to be able to manage it, but once you get one in me, bro, there's no fucking stopping me. It's really, it takes a major event for it to stop me in my
Absolutely.
track.
Yeah.
Like even getting a CPS case never really stopped me. This time it didn't. Right when my kids were taken, I wasn't like, oh yeah, I need to get clean now. Like I still got loaded for the next 6 days, and when I had to pee in a cup and I knew I was dirty, then I stopped. But like it takes.
Oh, I
what
couldn't
it
even
takes.
do that.
Yeah, I did, right? Because and you know what? For me, this last time, I knew, like, I wanted something different. I really did. I just didn't know how to get back to the rooms. I just did not know how to get back to the rooms. And George was one of the people I would call. I'd be like, come pick me up for a meeting. And then, by 5 p.m., like, don't pick me up for the meeting because I'm loaded again. You know what I'm saying? And just not being able to get back and just feeling hopeless, feeling like there's no way out of this. Like, my next step is, like, kill myself. Like, that's the only solution I could come up with that's feasible in my head, And then, like, I don't know, man. Like, people have, like, this perception, and I know I did too, right? Where it's like, oh, it's a lot of work to stay clean. But it's not just about staying clean. It's not, right? If being clean was the only thing that happened to me by being in recovery, it wouldn't be worth it. It just wouldn't, right? It's the being clean. It's the raising our kids. It's the gratification of being able to be there for somebody else. It's the purpose that we find in life. It's the knowing that we're breaking those generational curses.
Absolutely.
Knowing that, like what Michael was talking about, the bond, bro.
Yeah.
I ain't never had bonds like this, bro. And I had people that I would have fucking killed for and that I would have died for. When somebody pulled up, when one of my homies pulled up in the car and they're like, hey, like, we got into it with these foods, like, I'm the first one raising my hand, right? Like, I would have died and killed for these dudes. You know what I'm saying? But the bond that we have is fucking completely different than that, bro. It ain't like, get in my car, let's go fucking knock these foods out or whatever, right? Whatever we were doing as kids, right? Now it's like, get in the car, fool. I know you're having a fucking hard day. Let's go get some coffee, right? Like, people fucking carry us, dog. Like, it's fucking...
When my brother was on life support last year, like I said, it was December. My dad... in November had a UTI infection. And if you're not familiar with what happens to elderly people when they have a UTI, it causes them to have psychosis. And I caught it on Facebook. He was typing some weird shit. And I'm like, what? And it was just a perfect storm. His wife wasn't there she was out of town in Oregon. He was there and so long story short, he was going through a lot. We'll just put it that way. He's going through a lot right now too. But, and so then my brother was on life support from December all the way to, like I said, February and work. I had, I have this job where sometimes there's a lot of stuff going on and it's like not stuff that I could just, by myself come over here and do. I have to talk with you and coordinate with you and figure out this and then I have to disperse it to the masses and have it make sense. And it's just a lot. And so I was in this fight or flight mode. And just, I don't even really know how to articulate what I was going through at that time because, my loved one that passed away in 2021, he was on life support for a long time from January 11th, which is the day after my mom's birthday, till March. So, and it was during COVID, so it was a lot, and it's like, how do you grieve somebody who's not gone yet, but yet they're gone? Yeah. And so I was in this state of just go through the motions. And I remember having a conversation with one of my colleagues who's super near and dear to my heart, and I was sitting there and I said, and like right now I'm touching my arms, and I'm like, it's tangible. The love and the unity and the connection that I have in this fellowship is like I could feel it in my blood, and that doesn't mean I'm on the phone all day with everybody and, I'm in your pocket or you're in my, but like, it's just this heartbeat. Mm-hmm. It's just this lifeline that we're connected to is phenomenal, phenomenal. And I remember saying, like, I can't imagine, like we were talking about earlier, I can't imagine not having the type of relationships that I have with people today.
Yeah.
You know, where we could be like, hey, whoop, 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 and then go into like childhood and you know, what I've learned and, you know, relationships and, you know, all these things, man. And like, it's priceless.
Yeah. It is.
And like you were talking about like the kids and stuff, man. And, you know, I have this granddaughter. So when I relapsed and I ended up in prison, like, you know, I found out that my daughter was pregnant, you know, and so I wasn't there when my granddaughter was born. And I remember, you know, this little girl that used to always write me letters and, you know, my mom would put money on my books and, you know, I was always taken care of and loved on. And this time it was like, no, you know, and my kid didn't want nothing to do with me. I talked to her one time and she said, you know, I'll let you see this kid, but don't think you're going to have a relationship with this baby, you know? And when I got out, I had to work towards it. I had to accept that that's where she was at. I had fucked up and I had to accept that's where she was at. And, and if you know me, you know, like, we're like, you know, I went to pick her up the other day from school and cause that's what I get to do. I get to be present, man. And she comes out and she's like wearing all black. I go, why are you wearing all black? Who does that? And I'm wearing all black. You know what I mean? Like she's just, you know, and, but yeah. And so, just being present, you know, and getting to like I'm blown away. Like I always hear, I'm musical. I mean, I'm not musical, but the voices in my head are, but, you know, I always think of,
What do they say to you?
Are they telling you to harm me? I always think of that song. Like when I start, you know, reflecting on my life and becoming like super grateful, like I always think of that song, by the Talking Heads, right? Like, this is not my beautiful life. This is not my beautiful house. Like, you know, I'm like, how did I get here, man? And it's not like, oh, I have all this bling bling or you know, but what I have, I've worked hard for, and what I have, I value, and what I have, I take care of, right? And I have these moments, right? Like right now, after this, I'm gonna go with my girls. We're gonna go out to eat, like simple things, but it's like so beautiful, man, so beautiful, you know. Yeah.
I have a situation yesterday that was just like that, really. So I went to a birthday party for a friend of ours, Juan, and his son.
Sick invite, Juan. No, I'm just kidding.
So we go there and
I'm just kidding.
This is the second year in a row that I've been present at this little boy's birthday party, and it's second year
I wasn't invited. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
And I brought my daughters, and my daughters became friends with his kids, and it was super cool. And like I had plans to take my daughters to the trampoline park after, and so we did that. And then my kids are like, "Hey, can we take them?" And I'm like, "Yeah, if it's all right with his dad, you know." And I was trusted with his kids.
Right.
And it didn't dawn on me right away, but I'm driving with my kids and his kids on the way there. And it's like I built a relationship, and I would trust him with mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've seen him parent. He's seen me parent my kids. And it was just kind of a surreal moment. And then we're at the trampoline park, and a fight breaks out. And like all these little kids are being nosy and wanting to see the whole thing. And then I'm thinking, man, these little kids are going to tell their mom, and then, you know, it's going to look bad on me. But like, I was just all in my head about that. But it's just crazy I never trusted my kids with anybody ever.
Right.
I just had this fear. As soon as I had kids, I was like, no one's going to care for them but me or family. And like I never had friendships like that.
Yeah.
To where I would even consider it. And like now I don't have any worry about that. And it was a big deal for me to be trusted with someone's children. You know, I mean, today they're safe with me, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a big deal. So I can relate to that a little bit. So Gina, you got anything else?
Well, yeah, just the same thing. My daughter said the other day, yesterday, I took him to a meeting with me, and they were talking to Gasper, and Gasper's loved on me since I first got clean, and he's always because I was talking to my son, right? So we were driving, and down Waterman, and there's this dude at the corner, and he's like 40 years old, right? And he's throwing up gang signs at all the cars for no reason, right? And I was like, bro, I'll just get out the car and just knock his ass out just for being stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just looks so ridiculous, you know? And then so I my son's in the car, and I looked at my son. I said, bro, like, I'm telling you right now, if you ever get from a neighborhood, if you ever start tagging on walls, we're gonna have problems. Like, I'm gonna hurt you, and I'm gonna hurt all your little homies, and like fucking like don't play with me like this. Like, cause I don't want him to go through anything that I went through, right? Thinking like finding that false love, that false camaraderie, you know what I'm saying? That false family, you know what I'm saying? Like, I got your back, I love you, but when the guns come out, the cops come, it's every man for themselves. Like, I was like, we're not doing that, bro. You know?
You went looking for that because
100%.
it was missing. That's not missing for him.
No, and he's a really good kid. Fool. Like, at his age, I was already fucking trying to throw up gang signs. I was already trying to, and I got family members who raise their kids, and that's no disrespect to my family, but raise their kids where they're already 5 years old, starting up their neighborhood, and they think it's funny and it's cute, but it's creating a belief system that is not okay. But yet we cry when our families get killed from gang violence, right? But we're starting that culture at a young age. So anyway, so we went to the meeting, and then Gasper, like, because Gasper talked to my kids at that party. You know what I'm saying? Let them know, like, how to be a woman and what, you know, what to expect from men. And I know all this kind of stuff, right? And so as we were leaving the meeting last night, I was like, hey, like, we don't trust everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, but like, if I allow them in my house, there's a reason that I allow them in my house, right? But that doesn't mean that like everybody I hug at a meeting is somebody that I'm close with, right? Like, I'm only close with certain people, like Mike, Juan, you know, Sergio, you know, Mario. Like, these are family to me. You know what I'm saying? And they're like, we know, Dad. Like, I feel like your friends are my uncles. You know what I'm saying? And
I remember, Adam, we had a conversation when you were moving into this house, and we were talking about that. You know, and I'm the same way. You know, I'm not one of those. My house is an open, no. Yeah. It's my sanctuary. It's my home. It's where I'm with my loved ones, and you know. And I remember we were having that conversation, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, and
it's special. It's sacred. Yeah.
Here's the thing, right? Like, I got women like you, right? Women like Jessica, right? Women like Yoli, and multiple other women. You know, I don't really get close to women now. Like, I feel like I have in early recovery, like, I wanted to be around all the women. Now, like,
I'd rather
close. I'd rather stick with, that was the way to, but that's how I interpret it, right? Now, like, I have really close relationships with men, and it's like, bro, who better to set an example for my son
I was waiting for it, bro.
Then Mike, then Juan, then Gasper, then fucking Willie. You know what I'm saying? Then Mario, then Sergio. You know what I'm saying? Then Warrior. Like, all these people, like, who like, all my examples of what a man were tatted down, that got thrown out, like, banged out, like, see my cousins get shot. Like, those are the men that I had to look up to. Right? Those are the men that, even if they weren't sitting there coaching me and telling me the game, man, like, I watched them and I seen how they lived, and I was like, that's what I want to be.
Right.
Right? And, like, I don't know, man. Like, if they say that, like, your son will grow up to be a man like you, and your daughters will grow up to marry a man like you, right? But I think that that's also the people that you surround yourself with. Absolutely. Right? And if my daughters could find good men like the men I have in my life, and my son could become a man like the men I have in my life, then we're off to a good start. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jessica picked up my girls and took them to, like, this event, and they were Frankie and Tina, and they took them to this event. It was like a sex trafficking event, and they, like, you know, sat there with them, and they talked to them, and, like, they built a relationship. Like, my daughters built a relationship with Tina Johnson, who we had on the podcast. These people are just, like, amazing women and amazing men. And I remember talking to a therapist about this. Like, I don't like my kids around people. Right. Right? And the therapist is like, why? Yeah. They're clean people. Like, they're people that went through struggle, went through hard times, and now they're like these incredible people, right?
And your kids get to get this education from a place of being healed. Yep. Like 100%. Especially now, it's so crazy. I remember there was this movie that some high school kids put together about fentanyl, and they were going to have a free showing, but unfortunately we had, like, some other stuff going on, and I asked my daughter, I'm like, hey, is this something we could take, you know, my granddaughter to? Or do you think she's too young? And my daughter's like, no, I talk to her about this stuff too. And I talk to her about things a little bit more vaguely, but I think, you know, even now it's like, yeah, this world is so different. Like if what's out in this world now was when I was a kid, I would be dead.
Yeah, me too.
Period, point blank, because I was a pig. You know what I mean?
did.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's important that our kids know all the stuff.
I don't hide nothing from my kids.
That's right.
I don't sit there and bash their mom, but I'm like, bro, like I tell them straight up, like she's on drugs. You know what I'm saying? She loves you. She's just sick. You know what I'm saying? And like, and I talk to them about like what drugs will do to you. You know what I'm saying? I told them yesterday too. I told them, you know, I fucking love you guys with all my fucking heart. But when I get under the influence, nothing else fucking matters.
Right.
Nothing. Right. And that's how powerful this addiction is, right? You think they're fucking, oh, let me smoke a little bit of weed and I'll be fine. And, you know, and I told them, not everybody that smokes weed becomes addicts. But I'm telling you right now, I did everything I told myself I would never do. Everything. When I smoked weed while I'm never doing meth. I smoke meth while I'm never putting a needle on my. I put a needle on my. While I'm doing this, but I'm never gonna leave my kids. I left my kids. Oh, I'm doing this, but I'm never gonna put hands on my. You know, and it's just this snowball effect of everything that I'll never do, and it just like the standard of living and my morals and values just got lower and lower, and that's what addiction does. You know what I'm saying? It fucking breaks you down. It fucking backs you into a corner, right? That you do whatever the fuck you have to do to fucking live in that corner. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm very open with my kids. They know who I am. They've seen me act out a few times when, you know, getting rowdy with people, pulling knives on people. Like, I'm not proud of that, right? But they know.
Was this clean or no?
Yeah,
Just kidding.
it was. Yeah, well.
She knew the answer to that.
Yeah. They made my oldest daughter feel really uncomfortable, and I felt like I had to fucking prove a point. First of all, you're not gonna make my daughter feel uncomfortable. Like, I don't give a fuck who you are. Like, if you're especially a grown man, like, you got me fucked up, you know. And did I handle that situation wrong? 100%, right? Because it could have went way worse. I could have ended up in prison. I could have ended up killed. I could have ended up all that stuff. Luckily, there was no way for me to get to him, right? But so my kids know that I'm fucking a little psycho and like and I think it's a good thing. Like, don't play with me. I'll fucking kick down doors. You ever try to run away, I'll fucking find you. You know what I'm saying? I've proven that already. You know, but my point is, right, is my kids know me. Like, they see another side of me sometimes, but they also see like the loving, caring side of me. They also see like the people that I help, and I think that is a great lesson. And why would I want to shield them from the recovery process that is not just about stop using drugs? It's about dealing with
Life on life's terms.
yeah, being abandoned, right? It like having addicts as parents, like just all that stuff.
Especially because they've been exposed to the other side of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah.
You know, my kids, my 3 younger ones have never really seen me act out. Addie and Layla don't remember me high, right? And they were 2 and 3 when I got clean. They don't remember that side of me, right? But they see their mom. They know what their mom's going through. They're not dumb. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, for me, it's like, I feel like my mom lied to me and protected me my whole life so much that it was a disservice to me. You know what I'm saying? She would tell me not to do drugs, but she wouldn't tell me why. Right? And so for me, like, I'm just open, man. I believe I am the same person in every room that I enter. Right? Sometimes I'm vulgar. Sometimes I say too much, whatever it is, right? But I'm like that at home.
I would say sometimes you're not vulgar, meaning most of the times you are.
Hey,
sometimes it implies that it's a little bit. No, I'm just kidding.
But you know what? I am who I am, and I'm that way at my house
and
too.
I love you.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And my kids, they get a real version of me. They don't get like this. I'm just not that dad, and I'm not gonna try to pretend to be somebody that I'm not. And I'm not saying that I'm just like, oh yeah, fuck that bitch, and this all that, you know, in front of my kids, like I'm a different version when I'm with Mike, you know, and Juan and all that stuff. But my point is, right, is they get an authentic part of me where they know that what I taught to them is it's real, you know.
It's funny because like I'm the same way. Like at work, professionally, I keep it gangster. You know what I mean?
Too.
In a professional way. It's funny because a few years back, my cousin posted something about she's a hippie chola, and then my other cousin said she's a, what did she say? Something about an emo chola, and I was like, I'm a chola professional, you know. But we went to this event with one of my colleagues, and it was for another company, and it was like their celebration fundraiser, 40 year or whatever. And I'm like, hey, you know me, social butterfly. I'm like, you know, talking to all these people. And he's like, how do you know all these people? And I'm like, well, I used to work for this company. I said, but that person I know from recovery, we're home group members. I said, you know, so some of these people have kids from my family because I have a big family. I said, I've been to prison with some of these people. And some of these people I've been to school with, some of these people I've been to work with, right? And he's like, oh, you know, ha, ha, ha. And then time went by. And then I was like, yeah, her and I were, you know, cellies. And he's like, oh, you were serious? I'm like, yeah, you know. Yeah. And I have this friend, and I love her, dude. And she's the same way, you know. And whenever we see each other in a professional capacity, like I'll send her a little message. It'll be like, started from the bottom, now we're here, you know. And it's just this, yeah. Got to keep it real, man.
Yeah. I think that's the best thing we could do for each other is be authentic as possible. It's not about like that fake shit. If I'm hurting, Mike knows. Yeah. My ability to be honest about who I am and what I'm going through is the only reason why I'm still here this year. And that's a fact, you know? And so I just try to be authentic. I try to be authentic with my kids. You know what I'm saying? I also want them to know, like, I love you. I'm caring. I'm compassionate. I'm understanding. But I'm not, like, don't play with me either, you know? Like, I'll fucking hurt anybody that fucks with you. Like, it's a problem, you know? And that's just what it is for me, you know?
Yeah.
He said, want some, get some.
Yeah. I'm telling you, when those people were fighting in front of my house yesterday, I grabbed my knife from the car, and I was like, if one of these fools try to, it's just all bad, bro. But I'm like, get the fuck away from my fucking house. You guys are right, my kids are in there asleep. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's bad, bro. Yeah. And a part of me wanted just to see them fight, but a part of me remembered, well, I'm not in the hood no more, so this isn't
I was going to say, you moved from the hood.
I know.
Into a nice neighborhood.
Somebody just got killed on the corner of my house, and then now these fools are fighting in front of my house. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I did? I called the cops, bro.
Yeah. That's growth.
Yeah, I was like, this is what they look like. This is their car. You know what I'm saying? Like, because they were gonna end up killing somebody, bro. They were drunk. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so
Gina,
Mike,
if you could give one piece of advice to somebody that's been through some of the things, in and out of prison, in and out of recovery, what would that be?
Man, just that you're worth it. You know, and give yourself a break. I know we're our hardest critic. We're our hardest critic, man. And, you know, nothing worthwhile happens overnight. So, you know, it's a process, not a journey. I mean, it's a journey, not a destination. And it's a process, man. And, you know, like Loco over here was talking about, we're not always perfect, man. We're not. And that's okay, you know. Bump our head and you know what's that saying they say? You can't save your ass and your face at the same time. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you, Gina, for coming out and listening. All you guys that are listening, please like, share, comment, subscribe, send this to anybody who might need to hear Gina's story. Follow us on IG at the Messages Hope Podcast.
And if you guys have anybody you'd like to hear on the show, or you just want to reach out and let us know how we're doing, or if you need some help, you can reach out to us on social or email us at themessagesHopePodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you next week.
But you'll never know unless you walked up in my shoes. As someone who struggled with addiction in the past, how does it feel to be able to give hope to others who are still struggling now?
You know, it's such an honor to be able to hear other people's experiences of life, to see how when faced with the very thing that was sent to destroy you, kill you and take you out forever didn't, but rather you have been given a second chance to give hope and be a light for those who are still in the dark. So don't be afraid to share your message to the world. You never know whose life you might be saving.